This week, my good friend Blake and I are coming to you with a special interview episode. That's right, we're interrupting our Formula One action, and with a very good reason, as we welcome Mr. Wilhelm Schmid, CEO of none other than Lange Sohne. Wilhelm is someone I've been thoroughly eager to meet, so this conversation was especially exciting for me. Wilhelm is an incredibly engaging guest given the product he oversees, and as some of you may not be aware, he's deep into cars, more specifically as a vintage car enthusiast. As a result, Blake and I are thrilled to welcome him, not only to get to know him a bit more, but also introduce a new watch making its debut at the Concours of Elegance Germany at Lake Tegernsee. We are excited to share stories about the watch and its collection within Lange Sohne's catalog, and we can't wait for more to come. Please enjoy our conversation with Wilhelm Schmid.
Wilhelm, Mr. Schmid, it's really a pleasure
You
to
can call
see
me
you again.
Wilhelm, please.
Wilhelm.
Whenever you call me Mr. Schmidt, it feels like I'm old.
Well, and we've met a few times now, and we've done this a few times now. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to join Wesley and I.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure, guys. And again, if I look at Wesley's wrist, how can I refuse not to talk to you guys?
Well, where do we find you? Are you in Germany or are you elsewhere?
I am actually. I just shared with Blake. I'm back home because I left Glashütte because we expect some heavy weather. So I made it back home. I'm here in my home office and enjoying, the view, even it rains.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
So I'm in Dresden, actually. Glashütte is that little city up in the mountains where I go when I go to office. But from the beginning, we lived in Dresden, which is about 27 kilometers away from Glashütte.
Yeah.
Nice.
So you are about a week away from heading south to Lake Tegernsee. I hope I said that.
Very well done. Very well done. Yeah, pronunciation absolutely perfect.
Near the Australian border for a concours, for the German Concours d'Elegance. And you guys are, of course, heavily involved in these concours all over the world, really, and you have been for some time. So I think there's a lot around that we can talk about. And you have a new watch coming for this specific concours, which is really exciting. Before we get into that, you already touched on it a little bit. Maybe we can do a wrist check here, and then maybe we can start with Wesley, since you referenced him. Wesley, what are you wearing over there?
Yeah.
Oh, the hot seat. Well, I am wearing my beloved Lange one. It's the white gold variant silver dial. I think it's the sportiest version of what could otherwise be considered a dressy watch, and it's just the perfect daily wear. And I feel like 38.5 mil. This taupe alligator strap that I've got is just, it's kind of a summery vibe with this strap. I mean, it's a little lighter in color.
Yeah.
So it's appropriate for the season, and it's exquisite, and I love it, and I don't regret it one bit.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love it on that strap too. Do people notice in LA walking around with that thing? Is it a watch that people look at? Do they see? Do they recognize? What are people's reactions when they see this thing?
It's a valid question. Part of the reason I do love this is very few people know what it is. You really do have to be into watches to understand what a Lange Sohne is. I think that's fair to say. Me being active in the watch community, of course, people know what it is when I attend events and things of that nature, certain dinners and lunches and such, events. And then I do get just a slew of comments and compliments just due to the fact that it is on not an OEM strap, but a good looking one at that. So it's good. Yeah.
That's where we take it easy, to ensure quality, with all the different sizes that you have to purchase and supply. We usually stick to blue, black, and brown. And that then carries the logo of our Lange Sohne. So it's actually, we don't produce them, but it's our duty and our responsibility to make they last and they look like they should do. The moment you go into too many color variations, with all the different length, width, thickness, and so on and so forth, and the longevity of these natural alligator or natural leather straps is not endless. So you end up with 10,000s of stock that eventually you have to dispose, which I don't think is a very sustainable thing. So that's why the OEM straps will always be, very clear and clean. And I don't mind, and I know the boutiques offer that around the world. You can, and I like that color combination that you actually wear. I think it makes the watch look very cool in a way. It's a dress watch, but it doesn't look like a dress watch, specifically not with wearing a white T-shirt. Perfect,
Yeah,
Sure.
I will say I think a lot of Lange watches are highly versatile, and you can really tone them down with a suede
That's
strap.
the idea.
I don't know if I asked you about this before, Wilhelm, about Lange potentially offering a different material of strap on some watches like this.
Again, I think that's where individual taste kicks in, and what Wesley likes may not be the same taste in somewhere else. And if you start that journey, where do you end it?
Yeah.
And I also believe that there are so great strap makers around the world that there is no good reason for us to put capacity, resources behind it. I was in Tokyo a few months back, and there is a Japanese strap maker just opposite of our boutique who will do the strap you want at a quality and at a price, I have to say, that's unheard of. So I believe, we stick with our core competence, and that is designing and constructing and manufacturing these beautiful watches, but we give the freedom to the customer, to the client, to put the strap that he or she likes around the wrist.
I like that.
I also know that certain boutiques too, Wilhelm, and correct me if this is outdated information, but I know Costa Mesa used to offer custom straps through Jean Rousseau, which is actually where this is from. I'm a huge Molequin fan, as is Justin Hast, our friend, but this one happens to be a Jean Rousseau.
Yeah, no, that's what I just said. The boutiques all have their presentation box where you can choose the colors, the material, the stitching, the width, the strings, the length, and then it will come tailor-made to you, but it will not carry the Lange Sohne logo. That's where we draw the line. All OEM straps will wear it or carry it, and that means we are responsible.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Wilhelm, what do you? Well, we can quickly. I'm wearing an IWC Ingenieur.
Nice, the green one, the Brad Pitt one.
Yes. Well, it's the teal dial. It's also a summary watch. We'll just say my Lange is in for service or something like that. But Wilhelm, we got to get another look at this. What are you wearing on your wrist today, sir?
Yeah.
Where the white gold, pink gold dial, 1815 chronograph rattrapant perpetual, very classical watch.
Unbelievable.
But Tony always, the head of our development, he always gets afraid when people call it a salmon dial, because it's actually not coated. It's actually solid pink gold. There's just a clear coat on it because we want to avoid that the pink gold may oxidize, which it will do over time. That's a big weakness of pink gold. Not this one, of course, because it's cold, but it's factually pink gold. It just doesn't look like. It looks more like a salmon dial. Tony will kick me if he hears me.
All right, we'll give him trouble about that next time we see him in that case. So we're here to talk about Lange's appearance and your involvement, your partnerships with these concours. You have one that you, as this goes live, it will just be starting in Germany. And this is the Concours d'Elegance in Germany. You are, of course, involved in many of these. Wilhelm, I get the sense that you're just kind of a big car guy that happens to be working in the watch world, and you are looking for opportunities to get your brand involved with stuff like this. Why is Lange involved in so many of these?
I wouldn't say it this way, actually. As I worked in the car industry, I was spending all my money on watches. Now I work in the watch
Okay.
industry. I didn't discontinue my spending in watches, but I also bought cars. So no, I would say watches and cars is really sort of something that followed me throughout my life. I'm a son of a car dealer, so no surprise. Um, so same goes for watches. I bought my first car and my first watch at the age of 17. The car is still in my garage. The watch unfortunately got stolen. So I still have box and papers because I believe in faith and it will come back eventually. So I still have everything but the watch.
Oh, wow. What was the watch?
I never disclosed it, so I won't start it today.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, but we're still looking.
It was a mechanical watch, and it was a typical thing at the time. 33 millimeter, far too thick for the width, because it was sort of a chronograph and a full calendar. 4 sub-dials, but not a perpetual calendar. You had to adjust them all one by one, which was a bit of work to do on the months that are shorter. But a typical mechanical watch, probably we talk now about 81, 82. And mechanical watches in these days were slightly different to what we see today.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Just like the cars.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Very true.
Naturally, but you are naturally a big car guy as well.
Yeah,
I've gotten the sense.
as I say, cars and watches and cars.
Yeah.
But again, before people think I made my hobby to pay the company for it, as I arrived, which is now about 15 years ago, we were doing many different things. We did some architectural things, some art support. We went into the Salzburg musical Festspiele. And I had to realize, first of all, I couldn't identify a strategy behind that. It was more tactics. And then I also realized it wasn't really in line with what we think our Lange Sohne stands for predominantly. So we were screening the market at the time for a platform outside the watch world where you can bring your clients, but you can also introduce your brand to people that naturally wouldn't go to the watch world. So that was always the intention. And I believe it's fair to say that if you like mechanical art, because you collect cars, the likelihood that you also like watches, mechanical watches, specifically if they're in the high end, is highly likely. And if you, and I always emphasize on that, we're very specific. We sponsor concours of elegance, not just the odd car show or the vintage car racing, as much as I like that, but that's not what we do. And if you look at these cars, you can easily see, they're built by skilled people and they're maintained by skilled people, craftsmen. They usually have a design which is absolutely timeless because it's attractive today as it was back in the days when these cars were launched. And they usually carry a great heritage, otherwise they won't make it to these expensive and good concours of elegance. And now if you summarize craftsmanship, design, heritage, that's very much what we represent. That's actually the 3 pillars that our brand is resting on. So that's why I think that's, despite the fact that I love it, which helps because it's authentic, but there's a strong business reason for it, and that was the driver of it, reference. So sometimes I even regret that we do it professionally because it means I have to work on these events instead of enjoy them.
Well, I hope you get some time to at least wander around and find a few of your favorites.
I definitely get that. And I will insist on it. That's usually that's the good part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what percentage when you're attending these events is split between talking about cars and talking about watches? Because I imagine it's each gives itself, you know, a run for its money conversationally.
I would still believe that the watch talk is taking the overhand. However, sometimes the common denominator is the car talk, which then moves into the watch talk, or vice versa. I'm not denying this. So it's hard to distinguish, but because we usually have our own guests, and of course they want to talk watches, and I want to talk watches with them. The journalists that attend, we talk about watches, not about cars. So I would still think it's more watches than cars, at least for us.
Yeah. Do you have a certain era or kind of car that you look forward to at each one of these things? I'm going to go look and see if there's one of these here, or I know one of these is going to be there. I got to go see it. I recall a certain old BMW in Newport that that we all
It's the
found.
same, you know, whenever Tony comes with a new watch, I want to have it, but you have to control yourself a little bit at least. No, I'm born 63, so obviously, as I said before, I bought my first car at 80 and the first watch as well in 1980. So I'm very much a 50, 60, 70 guy. My youngest car is from 66. And I think that's a personal taste, and I won't even argue with somebody that disagrees because I would fully accept that. But at least for my taste, the most beautiful cars were built in the 50s and in the 60s.
Mm.
Personal taste, can't argue it.
Yeah.
And of course, if I see these beautiful Bugattis or the massive Bentleys, are very nice cars, but I was once asked a question on this concourse of elegance, not what is best of show. I find always more interesting the question is which car do you want to take home tonight?
Yeah.
And that may be a very different answer to what is the most beautiful car here.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts of Newport, and I was reading about
Yep.
the German one, is that they have a category for newcomers to the
Yes.
event.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, it was like an E30 M3 that won in Newport.
Absolutely.
I love this category, and I'm glad to see them continuing it. That encourages kind of a new generation of enthusiasts to be in this space.
We have the same at Hampton Court, and we do the same at Tegernsee. I think at Hampton Court and in Hampton Court and at Newport, Rhode Island, at the Audrain, they call it the 30 under 30.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's you see a variety of cars, which is amazing. But what is even more amazing, you see the passion in the eyes of these people. And that's so important because, you know, these cars are like our mechanical watches. You don't need them today anymore for the original purpose. So the purpose is substituted by passion.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it, actually. Purpose substituted by passion. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were so many fun cars there and unexpected to see, from like Type R Integras and, you know,
Yeah.
BMWs from the 90s and stuff like that,
Yeah.
alongside all these great classics from
Yeah.
the 40s, 50s.
But you know, you're amazed that there was a car auction at the Villa d'Este this year, and a Honda NSX-R achieved almost $1 million.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
You see, I mean, it's a rare car. I think they only build about 140, but who would have said 10 years ago that a Honda NSX will achieve $1 million? You know, you see, it's times are changing, and it's a new generation, and they probably buy what they used to win in the games, the race with. I guess that's the secret.
Yeah.
Sure. Is there a common mark that a Lange Sohne owners drive? What would you say is like the most popular brand of car that a Lange Sohne owners drive, would you say?
I see a lot of Porsche,
Yeah. Okay.
I would say. Yeah, I mean, I never did a statistic, but I would say that, if I think about it, I've heard the name Porsche quite a lot.
Yeah,
You know,
I think that makes sense.
I think, the German and yeah, I guess Porsche probably, I have to say, that's just gut feel. But I
Yeah.
would think a lot of them also like or drive Porsches.
You've got a
Timeless.
sample size of one here with Wesley.
Yeah,
I think
well,
you've got one of those in your garage as well.
oh man, such a stereotype today.
You know what? I never wanted a Porsche. And then I found a car which I thought, I can buy, renovate, and sell. And then I drove it, and it's still in my garage, so it will never leave me.
What do you have? Which one do you have?
I have two. I have a 66 2-liter S, and that started the mess. Which is in a beautiful color combination, original. It's slate gray with a light brown interior. And to our knowledge, it's the only 2-liter S short wheelbase ever produced in that color combination.
Wow.
So that's why I bought it originally. And as I said, it's still here and I drive it a lot. I just love it.
Yeah, I love that.
That's a very Lange color as well.
It is a Lange Sohne, and then you look at the dials and you see the VDO. And if you know the history of our Lange Sohne, then you know that we once belonged to the same company. So there are hints here and there, and also if we talk about legibility, our watches. Look at your watch, you will see the date and the time immediately. These are the two informations that you really need on a first glimpse. You drive a Porsche. Forget about all the stuff you don't need. You look at the ref counter. That's what you need to know.
Yeah.
100%.
It's interesting. You see I would almost call that a German design language, which I think is a common denominator. And on top, isn't it amazing? I mean, if I park my old lady next to a brand new Porsche 911, you can still see it's a lot bigger, it's a lot wider, it's a lot heavier, but it doesn't look like different cars.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
Wilhelm, you grew up in like a really interesting era of motorsports. I feel like, especially through the 80s.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would call that decade like maybe one of the most interesting when it comes to motorsports. Were you a fan of like Group C cars at Le Mans in this era?
I grew up in a little city called Jülich, which is about, I think it's 100 kilometers away from the Nürburgring. And I'm a son of a Ford dealer, and you know what, in the 80s, the car to beat were the Ford Caprice. We spent many weekends with our travel home at the Grüne Hölle, the Green Hell, that's called the Nürburgring, watching first the Caprice, then the Batmobiles, the BMW 3-liter CSL came.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget the first time the Datsuns raced, because they had this funny engine and they were screaming like hell. It was the noisiest race car I've ever seen in my life. No, I've fond memories of that. No doubt. That was the heydays where, the cars you saw on the road looked like the cars on the racetrack, maybe on steroids, but you could still see it's the same car.
Yeah. It's like homologation specials kind of things.
Yeah.
Is this something that do you pay attention to this world at all right now? Like Le Mans, endurance racing, F1, any of that kind of stuff? Is that on your radar?
No, funny enough, I followed the circus for 3 years from 1999 to 2002, because my job back then was in the oil industry for Castrol, and I was the head of the contract with BMW and the Formula One team. So I traveled with them for 3 years, And after that, I lost interest. It's always a big debate with my son, who is nuts about Formula One. But I think that Netflix series Drive to Survive changed the perception specifically of young people towards Formula One. I still like the era. It was very funny. A few years back, the Villa d'Este Concorso d'Eleganza, they had a class which was Formula One, and the theme of the class was when sex was safe and racing dangerous.
Yeah. I'm sure that was popular.
So the 70s or the 60s?
70s,
Yeah,
the 70s, the
yeah.
80s. That's where we lost a lot of good drivers because of it was really dangerous. But that's more the modern cars. I watched, of course, the movie. Had to do it, had to go there, no question.
Yeah.
And I just think the whole thing is just not so appealing to me. I watched Le Mans Classics 2 weeks back.
Yes.
And then you see some proper racing, which is very slow compared to what they do, and it is proper racing.
And these are amazing cars out on track at the Le Mans Classic through all years, from cars from the 30s, 40s, 50s out there racing. It's such a cool thing. I feel like this is such a way too under the radar event. People need to know about this.
It is. Yeah, a friend of mine is racing his Alfa Romeo 8C, who once belonged to a guy called Ferrari. It's
heard of that guy.
Won the Mille Miglia, God knows what, and he's going on the racetrack. And funny enough, I think he came in second or third in total. So
wow.
And that in the rain. And I have to say I can't, because Yvonne, my wife, said you have enough hobbies, you don't need another one. But it's I like looking at this. It's a very mechanical thing, like our watches.
Yeah.
I attended my first ever Goodwood back in April, and I went to the
members meeting. The members meeting, which is probably this and the revival would be my favorite ones. Probably the revival, because potentially the weather is slightly better.
Sure, but we were able to see the Ford GTs going around, the GT40s, and I mean it was almost like watching a Le Mans Classic. I mean it was really, really fascinating, and they were really pushing these cars, and obviously the dollar values associated with these vehicles is just absolutely astounding. But there ended up being a YouTube video called Ford versus Ferrari based on this weekend. It just came out like a month or so ago, and I just stumbled across it because when you're there, you can't really see all of the action. But this video, I encourage anybody listening to this to go to YouTube and look up the Ford versus Ferrari from the Goodwood members meeting of 2025. It was unbelievable.
And if that is not enough and you haven't seen the movie, go for the movie as well, because I think it's quite a good movie.
100%.
I'll take my take. I think it's still better than F1, the movie. Not that I thought the F1 was that bad, but like, I don't know. There was something special
about it. I was told that actually Alan Bates, who played Ken Miles in the Ford versus Ferrari, is a real talent and took a lot of racing lessons given by a guy used to work with Ken Miles originally, and he was full of compliments. So you can see a little bit of that in the movie. It's a great movie. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we got to get to this watch. At this event, you are releasing a special watch. It's a Zeitwerk date.
Yeah.
And it's in a special color combination of pink gold, I believe, with a gray dial.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what we started last year, and we will continue. So follow the events, because we're going to launch watches, because we use that additional platform to just communicate to the wider audience.
Yeah.
And we launched the white gold version of the Zeitwerk date a few years back. And there's a capacity restriction because the Zeitwerk is a very difficult watch to work on.
Yeah.
It is very strong. It's the strongest mainspring we use in all of our watches. So even the Lange 31, the one that has 31 days of power reserve.
Stronger than that. Wow.
The mainspring is actually not as strong as the one in the Zeitwerk. And that Zeitwerk department is also the only department where when a watch comes for after sales, it will go back to production. It will not go to after sales because it is so specific to work on these watches that you permanently need to work on them to not lose it.
Interesting.
But we got so many requests for the date. I'm a strong believer a watch should have the time and the date because these are the two informations I need every day.
Yeah.
The rest is nice. I love chronographs. Don't get me wrong. It's my preferred complication. But and then we got a lot of requests from people that said, "Look, I'm not a white gold person. I want pink gold. It fits my skin color better. It's my taste." And of course, the white gold version with a gray dial. It's amazing how pink gold can change the gray dial and vice versa. So that's why, and I do apologize because probably few people will complain that the waiting time is getting a little longer, but because we don't have extra capacity, it means we're going to produce less of the other watches to now produce at least enough watches of the Zeitwerk, the new ones, so that you can see them in the boutiques around the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the reason why coming up. And Tegernsee, as I said, it's a good platform. Now we will anyhow catch the watch world, but if you launch it at an event like this, you also catch the car world in one go.
I could see this being a popular watch with this kind of a crowd, or for anyone really mechanically inclined. This is like the ultimate kind of watch to nerd out on. I think not only because there's buttons to press and they feel really good, but like the tech that's inside of it, the understanding the constant force escapement that has to go to these things to allow for the there's a lot of fun details about this watch to really kind of nerd out on.
I always will not, because it's a story that most people have forgotten or haven't heard, but because it is such a sensitive movement, if I can put it this way. But with the push buttons, you go straight into the movement. And as we all push differently, that's exactly what you don't want. Actually, you want always the same power. And therefore, we designed the push buttons in a way that it's the release momentum that will go into the watch and not your push momentum. Because the release momentum we can determine, but we cannot say you have to push in a certain way. Tiny little things like that. But again, that just means a lot of ideas went into this watch. And, if you think about it, looks so simple, them all instantaneously jumping quicker than your eye can follow. And then what at least people that understand physics will understand: small car, small engine, small brakes; big car, heavy engine, big brakes. That's exactly the Zeitwerk. You need enormous power to make all the weight, which is a lot more than just a simple hand, to make all that jumping. But then you also need a lot of equipment to make it stopping exactly without destroying anything in the movement. That's why there's even a little windmill in it to reduce energy. So it's a fascinating watch, and there's a good reason that, at least to my knowledge, nobody has copied it yet. Even everybody knows it's hugely successful.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you can go as deep as you want on, nerd out on, but at the same time, it's intuitive at a glance.
Yeah.
If you look at it, you immediately get it in what's going on there. Compared to like a watch that's on your wrist, as beautiful it is as it is, you might be kind of explaining, well, this subdial's this is what the, none of that with the Zeitwatch.
None of
It's
that.
all just
None of
immediately
that.
self-evident, like what it's doing. And I also love that the date position doesn't change. It's the disc that changes around it. It's just all kinds of awesome in this watch.
And again, if you want to explain the watch to somebody, I would always say, set it on, let's say 11:59, and give them a moment. Because if you see it all jumping, you don't need to explain a lot anymore.
Yeah, it's like it's almost a magic trick, because all the while this watch looks unlike any other watch on the market.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's
Well, and
so
it's
special.
launched 2009 with me, so it's not a new watch. Huh?
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, it's also the only watch of this kind. We started with time only and power reserve. And today we have time only, we have minute repeater, we have striking time, we have decimal strike, we have date. So what started as a very monolithic watch today is a family,
Yeah.
which is interesting as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's also had the lumen dial and the Handwerkskunst
Absolutely.
dials.
Yes. A Handwerkskunst was definitely one. It's a watch that I missed in my collection. I think that one is still one of these hidden treasuries, because it's a beautiful watch on the wrist, and so much went into it. I mean, it's one of the very few watches where we used original Glashütte escapement made in gold. Only the GC, the Grand Complication, has the same system. And we learned the hard way that gold may not be ideal for it. We put so much time into that watch because of the golden escapement, that after that we understood why people changed to different material.
What a special thing, though, for just watch,
And again, that's what I like on the watches. And I think, Wesley, you said once in the beginning that you like that not everybody knows what it is. It's very much in tune with what we want. If you say you're into watches, I'd be disappointed if you don't know us.
I couldn't agree more.
To watches, it doesn't mean anything to you. And if you're into watches, and then you go to the next level, you do understand all these tiny little things, because it's the sum of these tiny little things that will set the watch apart from the mainstream of watches.
Yeah. Do you have any anecdotes from these events, being at these events and sharing the brand in one of your watches with somebody for the first time, who's experiencing one of these watches for the first time, who's really into cars, mechanically inclined, and then it's like they discover something that they've never known before and become fascinated by it?
I actually have lots of these stories. I think that one of the nicest story I've ever heard, it's a friend of mine who became a friend of mine, who had a Lange one, similar to the one you had, and it got stolen. But long before we had met for the first time, his wife was still wearing a Saxonia. And whenever I saw them, she was wearing the Saxonia, and he was complaining about the Lange one got stolen. And then a few years back, he looked at me and he said, I don't want to complain again. Now I want the Zeitwerk, and I want the little Lange one for my wife. So, I mean, how is this? And he is an architect, so he loves watches. And obviously, the Zeitwerk, was even more to his taste than the Lange one. So that's just one story of many that I've experienced through the time.
Yeah.
And remember, about a few weeks back, the first ever, the only watch we give for free in a year is the best of show trophy for the Concorso d'Eleganza at the Villa d'Este. And so far, none of these watches changed hands. They always stayed with the winner. But one winner decided to sell all his watches, and that was one of his watches. And the watch was sold about, what was it, 6 weeks ago, Jenny? 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago at the Phillips auction in New York. And it went for almost 750. So, that's a hell of a money for a watch.
Yeah, yeah. These are watches that mean a great deal to the right people, to people who pay attention.
There's no question. But again, it wouldn't mean anything to somebody that is not into watches.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. And we talked a little bit about these 30 under 30, these younger crowds that are coming into these events, and so just as big of enthusiasts. Do you think about like how well the brand translates to people of this age, and how do we communicate the values of the brand? Maybe they look at things a little bit differently from these people. How do you look at engaging this kind of a generation?
But first of all, let me kill one prejudice. Young people also like quality, longevity, sustainability, legibility, made out of rare materials. Sometimes they cannot afford it, but that's a different topic. Doesn't mean that they don't like it. So what we produce is not a question of age. It's a question of budget and how you get introduced to it. And I totally agree that, of course, the way we need to organize our events, the way we need to organize the social media platforms, the way we tell our story to them is probably different to what we did 20 or 15 or 10 years ago. So the way we communicate, I agree, we have to change, because otherwise we can't find them and they can't find us. But the watches, we don't need to change.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes you're amazed, because if you would look at the 6 watch families that we have, I think the most traditional for sure is the 1815. But that's very popular with young people. The up and down 1815, with a nice strap would fit your white shirt absolutely perfect. It wouldn't look like a traditional watch. But, if something like that design has been around since 94, it also means, they say design that's so long in the market is highly likely to stay longer in the market, where a design which is very popular at one moment in time, highly likely doesn't have that longevity.
Yeah, that's a great point there. And I would say about the 94, the designs that came out in 94, none of them look like, oh, that looks like a 90s design. You couldn't place them to any era. And I think that's another important quality that kind of, they transcend time.
Your watch, actually, I would not be able, if I take a watch that we launched in 94 and your watch, I would be able to say, when it's launched, unless it has a solid case back that were the first watches that would give it away. But other than that, they look identical.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And going just to circle back on your comment about communicating and social media and the ways you present the brand. One thing I think doesn't get noticed a lot is that the way that the watches are presented often are through renderings. And I think I actually love the fact that the renderings are shown mostly online, because that way when you see these pieces in person, it just blows your hair back. They look so much better in person, even when they look that good online. But I think it gets by people. I think it's a sneaky approach. People don't even realize that it's a rendering sometimes because the quality of the renderings are so good. But there's still a subconscious thing that's going on in person that you're like, oh, wait, what I saw before wasn't this.
Yeah. If we just take that for a moment, there comes that moment where you buy your watch. A lot of money is changing hand in that moment. But that's when the joy should begin. And then every time you look at your wrist, you should enjoy that, because then the price is quickly forgotten the joy is still there. Where if you overpromise, that moment of truth where you touch, and that can be a car, a suit, a pair of shoes, a watch, anything, if the marketing element kicks in too strong and the expectation are, so high that the product itself cannot deliver on it, that's not really creating joy.
Yeah.
And there is one other element, and that goes for any watch, Handwerkskunst, Lumen, honey gold. You simply cannot take good photos of it, regardless how good the photographer you are. How can you make a proper photo of a watch that will change the color depending on the light you expose it to? So, I mean, it's simple things like this, tremblage techniques, the polishing, the depth of our movement, the design, because that's creating the depth. How can you take photos of it?
Yeah.
And I still believe whatever we do in the digital world, whatever we do in print, whatever we do on events, the real moment of truth. And I would always strongly recommend to experience that before you buy a watch is to have that watch in your hands for the very first time. And then you will see whether it speaks to you, whether it compliments you, whether it feels good around your wrist, whether you like looking at it. And then, I mean, there's a hell of a money, but, the money is paid once, the joy will continue.
Yeah.
That's the moment of truth. And I think anything before that should build the frame for that moment. But the picture, the painting, that's the watch on your wrist.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful note. I think the proportions. There's so many little tiny details that are kind of impossible. In each one of them elicits some kind of like emotional reaction to it. And, with cars, it's one thing, you see it in magazine, all that kind of stuff. But when you see it in traffic next to a bunch of normal cars, it's like, wow, it's that low, it's that wide, it's that whatever. It's and it's the same with these watch. I remember the first time seeing a datograph, seeing a Lange one, like those are the distinct memories, and I don't get that with watches often. But those are certainly watches that have left like a mark on my mind. They have to be experienced.
Yeah. No, it's and again, that's where the joy and the journey should start, not before.
Yeah, I love it. So if people are listening and it's just going into the event, how can people pay attention to what's going on there? And is this stuff posted on like Lange's social feeds, or how can people kind of see the cars that are there and the watches and all that?
First of all, yes, it's not only us, it's also the other sponsors, and of course the organizer. I'll make sure that the word is spread. We're gonna play with it on the social media platforms, of course, and not only at the event, also later on. And the best thing is to come there, which of course makes a lot of sense for the Germans, Austrians, and Swiss people and the Italians, because that's all close by.
Yeah.
But of course, that's not easy to get from LA or New York there. So for you guys, it'll be probably on the social media platforms, more or less.
All right. Well, we'll leave links to all that stuff down below, so people can try and follow along, and I'm sure you'll see plenty of pictures of the watches there as well. I will hopefully be seeing the watch around the time this goes live as well, so I'll have some live pictures on my social and the Deep Track and all that kind of stuff. Wesley, I'm sure you'll get a chance to see this watch too at some point soon, I hope.
You're in New York, you said. I think Jenny, the watch is already in New York, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think we'll see each other next week, and get to check it out. So I'll have that up on the site as soon as it goes live. I can't wait to follow along and see some of the cars that are there. Wilhelm, it's just been a real treat to chat with you this morning. Thanks for making the time.
Wonderful. Great to see you two guys. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
and let's hope that we're going to see each other in Nordrhein.
Yeah, exactly. And we hope the weather clears up for you over there.
Yes.
But it is what it is. I just put raincoats into my car because I don't have a roof. So, in the worst case, we just get wet. It's not the first time, won't be the last time.
Yeah.
As long as it's not pouring down, we just manage through.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And if you're listening, if you're in Central Europe somewhere, definitely try to make it out to this thing. It's an experience that you won't forget. And so.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, with that, thank you so much for tuning in.
Wonderful. Wesley, Blake, Jenny.
Thanks very much.
All the best. See you soon. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wilhelm.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I wanted to take a quick moment to thank Wilhelm for his time to speak with us today, and as always, thank you for listening. If you haven't already, please rate and review this podcast as it helps grow the audience, and if you think you might have some friends interested, feel free to forward these episodes. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Take care.